Hello everyone, this is Maker Machinations, your daily dose of death traps. I'm Waldosis, and today we're talking about how to get the most out of your guards with better positioning and more effective patrols. When running through a lot of people's bases, guards seem to be a bit of an afterthought, seemingly thrown in to fill up the capacity where there isn't ideal places for traps. But guards are actually one of the strongest things in your outpost if used correctly. As I mentioned in my previous video, I am new to YouTube, so please make sure to drop me a like, comment, or even subscribe if you enjoyed the content and want to see more Meet Your Maker videos, as well as videos for other games. But for now, let's get right into it with 5 quick tips for getting the most out of your guards. So tip 1, ambushes. This one is so simple, but I've seen very few people using it, which is a real shame because it can be very powerful. See, guards can be set on patrols, something which is vastly underused in general, but with some clever use of hollow blocks, you can actually set up some interesting ambushes that are great for catching players off guard. You see, guards can pass through hollow cubes without triggering them, meaning you can hide guards in plain sight by just obscuring them with a hollow cube in places that players won't normally traverse. My favourite way of doing this is to set up some guards outside of your outpost, hidden behind a hollow cube. Then set a patrol, but rather than moving straight away, give it 30 seconds or so before you start moving. Then run your guard to the entrance of your outpost, and then run your outpost path behind where the player would have gone when they're raiding. This will cause your guards to flank behind the raider, and you can use this really well to block pathways using warmongers in choke points to slow raiders' escape during the second wave. Tip number 2, choke points. Warmongers are beefy boys, and an armoured warmonger in a small hallway can really slow down a raider. This is really useful for stopping the W crew from running through your outpost at maximum speed, and just avoiding all of your traps. Consider using guard patrols to readjust your positioning slightly, to ensure that you're blocking corridors in the most effective way. You can even use multiple guards placed together by patrolling them to create effective blockades. However, using blockades with multiple guards can cause you to lose a lot of capacity to a well-placed grenade, so use them sparingly. However, these blockades are definitely useful at stopping someone who is trying to speedrun through your base, because it will force them to stop and think about the path that they're taking. Currently, my favourite blockade setup is a warmonger and a hornet placed in the alignment that you can see on screen. Tip number 3 is masking your traps. So this one is actually a side product of guards, but it's something particularly useful. When a guard starts an attack, if it comes from the same direction as a trap will fire from, it actually masks the trap notification, meaning you can use guards to effectively help you hide traps. A good example of this is to have a guard on a ledge in clear sight in front of you, and then an impaler underneath you. In this instance, the guard will be shooting at you, which will give you a notification in the same place that the impaler trap would also notify you from. This means that if players didn't spot the trap on approach, they will have to react to the trap notification sound more so than the marker, making it much harder for them to find out where it is and get away from it in time. You can also really utilise this in bigger rooms where you can use multiple guards at different angles to overload a player with notifications, making it harder for them to avoid the traps that are in that room. You commonly see this used in kill boxes, and it forces the player to slow down to a crawl to really think tactically about a room. Tip 4 is around cannonbacks and bombs. So anyone who's been from my outpost will tell you that I love bomb dispensers. They are one of my favourite traps. But did you know that the cannonbacks, cannonball shots, have the same circular notifications that bombs do? You can utilise this to your advantage by setting up cannonbacks at angles where they'll fire their shots into spaces where bombs from the trap wouldn't normally reach. This gives a fake notification to the player where they think the bombs are close to them, and they can run in unpredictable directions. The cannonback will always shoot towards the player, so you can use this by placing the cannonback perpendicular to the angle of which the bombs are firing. That way it will fire into a direction the player won't expect. This can be great for catching people out, because it will fire into a position they wouldn't expect a bomb to be positioned in. You can also do this with enforcers and bolt traps. However, because of the directional notifications, raiders will have more reaction time, so the cannonback is really more useful for catching people out who are looking for that bomb proximity warning. Tip number 5 is absorbing ammo. Now, before I go into this tip, I just want to say this is a very dirty trick designed to catch out players who take on outposts at a slow pace or just rush through firing their ammo without any regard of where it goes. It's frustrating and really hard to deal with, and as such, use it a bit more sparingly than the other tips to avoid frustrating players and causing them to leave your outpost or not give you any accolades. However, it's a great trick for making your outpost a little bit harder by starving out the raiders' resources. To do this, position your guards at an angle so that from the approach direction where you can take a shot at them, they have a corrosive cube behind them. The reasoning behind this is that there's a very high chance that if the raider shoots the guard, they will fly backwards into the corrosive cube, making it harder or sometimes even impossible for the player to retrieve their ammo. Players will see this and generally try and go for a melee attack more so than shooting the guard, bringing them into range of other weapons or other traps. So make sure you punish the ones that go in for a melee attack by placing an impaler underneath the guard, or potentially giving the guard a dead man switch. Now all these tips are just for your default guards, but you can get much more creative when mods are involved, and I will be doing a future video about how to use mods very effectively. Personally speaking, I like to use the dead man switch. I like to put it on my guard so it forces players to move away from where they're standing and step into other nearby traps. But for now, these are the tips that I have for you today. Now before I finish, I just want to say that I'm looking at adding in another series where I'm going to raid some of the wonderful creations that people in the community have already started to make. So if you have a really cool outpost available for social raiding that you'd like for me to drop into and include in a new video, then make sure to drop a link into the comments and I'll go and check it out. Now I hope you've enjoyed this video. My next video will be up in the next few days talking about how to get more raids onto your outpost, but for now, I'll see you in the Wastelands.